buying was it's a go. Again, we don't know the actual load, and I still don't want to get overly optimistic. I think, my initial projection was 1.1 million in sales, which would be a net margin of like $750,000 straight to the bottom line. Again, it could take 4-6 months before that's online, but every month that's online, that's going to be tremendous for the bottom line. So there's a couple things we have going for us. And as we move down to the capital budget, you'll see where we are. The vast majority of the dollars remaining are either pending, we're planning to spend, or we haven't spent yet. That's 613 plus 187. So there's a lot of cash that eventually will be spent, but we will be going over, unfortunately, but really fortunately, on capital equipment. At the time this budget was created, we did not know if we were going to get Stony Bluff Phase 3. Well, we obtained them, and it's likely we're going to obtain 4 through 9. So there's going to be a capital outlay for that infrastructure and equipment. So we could choose not to do it, but it's kind of a no-brainer. It's one of the things you do. And then the transformer, surprisingly, for the grow facility, they want us to buy it. I explained to them the benefits. I showed them how much cash they would save a year by them owning the transformer, and explained that really besides the schools and ventures, and it's a tenant-landlord situation at ventures, all the big players do want to own their own transformer. They want us to buy it. It's going to be an expensive unit, but it should pay for itself pretty darn quick. And every year, I believe it's like $11,000 to $13,000 additional revenue we'll make because we own it. So it takes some time to pay back, and if they ultimately decide to buy that from us in the future, they have to buy it at the depreciated rate. And the transformer, it has like a 40-year life, so it's not like if you buy it at $50,000, 2 years later, you're getting 50 cents on the dollar. Does that make sense? If you sold it to a third-party transformer company, that's what they're going to pay you. But if we sell it to one of our customers, it's going to be the actual depreciated value, just like we did with King Milling when we sold them transformers as part of their big project. So just wanted to give everybody an update.
So probably it's not going to be your issue, but is that different? We've kind of adopted unofficially the policy that we always have a backup for everything that we have on our system. And so does that mean, is this something that we have stock of, or are we going to end up purchasing 2 of them?
Ryan, you want to chime in? Because my gut is, though, after talking with Ryan, we are going to be getting quotes by like next Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm glad you mentioned it because it will be outside of my purchasing authority, and it's something that could be like a 16-week lead time. I'm likely going to talk with Perry and get his approval if he gives the thumbs up mid-month, and then I'll send him an email. He's allowed to on some items like that. But Ryan, on that transformer, we don't know the size or specs, but we would want to have a backup, would we not?
I would say eventually, yes, we're going to want to have a backup, but I think it's going to be, we'll buy a brand new one from a very reputable company that we decided to go solely with on purchasing pad mount transformers. So we get this in place, we see what the actual load of this facility is going to be. What if it ends up not even needing to have a transformer of the size that we think it needs out of all the calculations? We have several different options in our supply right now that are a little bit smaller that might be suitable for an emergency backup if it happens to fail in the future. So I think we'll just see what happens as we go.
All right, I'm a big proponent of having backups or mutually talking to Grand Haven, Holland, Zealand, somebody. I mean, I hate, because when you talk about 16 weeks to make this thing, how do we, if we own it and something goes bad, how do we take care of that and get them you know, up and running in a matter of a short time. I'm not gonna say 14 minutes, but, so, I just think, again, I just think it's, for me, that's very important. So, okay,
Moving on to manager's report, Ryan, can you give an update on 204?
Circuit 204 cable is completely ready to go, aside from doing the integrity testing on the cable itself. All the connections, splices, terminations, everything has been completed on that. We're gonna figure out a day next week where we can get this cable tested. We have the equipment to do the needed test, and then we'll be able to get it put into service.
Yeah, I don't think I can overemphasize how good of work this was by Ryan and his crew. You'll remember that we obtained one quote recently from Kent Power to do this work because of all the things, and it was like $80-some thousand. You know, we did that in-house with our guys' expertise. I mean, there was a ton of tree trimming on Grand River, framing the poles, 3-phase, underground digging, massive amount of work to get easements, you know, through the town. I mean, this was like a huge project, in a main circuit that will feed the entire south side of town, and free King Milling up from being on the south side of town. They'll be on circuit 207. They'll be with other customers, obviously, but they won't have the exposure for an event south of the river. So, and it's a short run, you know, from the substation to King Milling. So, putting eyes on that and making sure there's no trees or problems, it's really a huge win. And I know King Milling will be extremely excited about it. And, you know, they are our biggest customer and great for the community. So, it's going to be awesome for the reliability. So, thank you, Ryan, for you and your staff's work there. You guys can read most of this. Want to provide a couple other updates. Ron, Ryan, Casey, and I met this past month. I just wanted to highlight it. I've had NTH conduct a health and safety audit at our energy center, and their job was to be the state of Michigan, or MIOSHA, and point out anything and everything that we need to improve and make better. Things where we're not in compliance with in terms of an OSHA, MIOSHA perspective, or where we could use better practice. Ryan, Casey, Ron, and I met to discuss all of those items. A plan has been put in place of who's going to do what. Ron and Ryan and Casey are going to spend the time necessary to get that facility back up into full compliance, and I've had subsequent conversations with Ron as head of the safety department of how we can ensure that we don't not only just fix what we have today, but the training happens with staff so they know what to do going forward. You know, I feel strongly that you guys have just committed $1 million to that entire facility for a lot of awesome upgrades, and I mean, we've bought other equipments and vehicles and trucks. The least we can do is to make sure that, you know, we are 100% compliant with all federal, state, local type of laws. So it's probably taken longer than I would have hoped, but I am making an effort, you know, here as I depart to get that done. And obviously we'll talk with Charlie, let him know the expectations I've created for staff so he can make sure this doesn't fall by the wayside. Want to give Anna a real big kudos. You know, she is part-time, doesn't receive any benefits, and just came in and really just create our handbook in 2009, and 11 years later, she's still with us, and she's been incredibly busy. I know, very taxed. She's had policies to write, a resignation, a general manager to hire, 2 other positions, a host of other things, and you know, really, she's handled all of this with great attention to detail. She's always been available from home. She's really operated above her pay grade, as she would say. So I really wanted to just give her a special shout out for everything that she's done. And then lastly, I completed our RP3 application today. It was due today. I knew it had to get done. I wish it didn't have to take me to the very end, but I could not let us lapse in our RP3 status. Would have been nice if I could have snuck out of here a couple months prior, somebody else could have spent. I give Tom Russo a ton of credit for all the work he's done in the past, because he's been the one that submitted our application every previous time. The application does change from cycle to cycle. You know, things come and go, and there's a greater emphasis on cybersecurity. You know, there's the modification or the tweaking of what you should be doing as a utility. I'm extremely confident we'll maintain RP3 status. I strongly believe we'll be at platinum. I'm not sure if we will be at diamond, to be transparent. You know, I've talked with Ron, Ryan, Casey, Julie. I 100% believe we've progressed as a utility, and I'm more confident in the major cornerstones and foundation of the utility, whether that be the rate structure and balance sheet, the star power that we have here on staff, the quality of the facilities, the reliability. You know, I guess I'll feel somewhat guilty if we take a step back in terms of the diamond to platinum, but you know, there's a lot of room there's a lot of different tiers within diamond or platinum, I believe, after going through the application. And it's been a really good learning experience for me, something that, you know, I wish, but I didn't. I wish I would have done in 2017 more with Tom when I was general manager. I think I would have learned a lot. Now I'm learning a lot because I'm leaving, but appreciate all the staff's time and effort that they put into that. Again, I'm confident we'll be at platinum. I'm curious to see what the grading committee will say regarding diamond, but we're headed in the right direction. I think a lot of the things that we've done, from the clear cutting of the transmission line, which we had never done, the significant tree trimming we've done on the primary, Casey's improvement in the generation department, new equipment that we've purchased in the last 3 years, you know, the renovations of facilities. It's hard for me to see that we actually would have gone from diamond to platinum, but we just may because of how the grading and the criteria have changed. But we'll make sure that's reviewed with Charlie, and that, you know, starting this next 3-year cycle, the plan's gonna be put in place so that the general manager's thinking about it from a yearly basis and not just, you know, that last 6 months. So, but we did get it done. It was a lot of work, but we got it done. So we'll see what they say. It'll be in December. Yeah, they'll be cheering my name or cursing my name, but I know we'll get RP3 status, and I think I'm confident we'll be at platinum. We'll see if it's diamond. But
So what parts of it did you think we might, like what changed that we would, I guess, score lower and?
you know, you could only miss 2 points to maintain diamond. There was one point where you have to actually have an orientation and a procedure for any outside staff or mutual aid that comes to work on your system. In the past, you could have like a tailboard discussion, or you could say you're working right alongside with that crew for safety purposes, and that would count. Now you actually need an orientation, and you need to actually have gone through that orientation with everyone. Didn't have that, and you know, after talking, I mean, that's something we gotta develop and do, and then I think of we know a lot of these crews in Holland, Zeeland, Grand Haven, we're comfortable with them, we know their skill set. If we had a major ice storm and they're coming here, yeah, there's the question, do you trust them to start working on your system? Or do you spend 30 minutes or an hour in an orientation with them for safety purposes? You know, Ron when Ron shared, when he went up to, I think, Cherryland and UP, they didn't have any sort of orientation. You know, they just got right to work. I should have asked Mark Drogue or, you know, somebody, when you go down south, you know, for a hurricane, what are those municipals doing? You know, Ryan shared with me, when he was in contractor world, sometimes the orientations could be multiple hours long for a job. So, again, it's something for staff to evaluate, but those little tweaks, there's some pretty intensive cybersecurity assessments that they want you to do, not just when things change, but on an ongoing basis, and they're quite costly. You know, our approach here has been, we have this awesome new data center that's very physically secure, but it also has incredible backups, that if we were to get hacked, we have a Linux operated backup system, as well as all these other copies. And we'll dump our equipment, get new stuff, and we'll be, you know, ready to go. So, there's just slight modifications, and then I think we need to do a better job creating more awareness and transparency from a training perspective. I think we have an emergency action plan. Is that necessarily reviewed with all staff every year? Do they know where that is? Would they actually, it's a one thing to have a document,
Yeah.
but if it's not useful,
Gotta be
what's the
assessed.
point of having it? So, again, I believe we've always answered every question fairly and accurately. I think we've never cheated the system. I just, you know, I like when I said there's different tiers of diamond, there's like these categories where there's 10 boxes you can check. Well, 4 can get you to diamond. Well, you shouldn't stop at 4, you should try to get all 10 if it's worth the while. So, I think there's some things, whether it be office, distribution, or generation, we've had policies or records or plans in place, but I don't know if they've been truly reflective of who we are. And again, it's almost like in certain parts I think a little hollow. Again, I don't want to be too down, because I think overall, when I look at utilities, we're striving for the best and we really are elite. But I just want to create realistic expectations from what I saw. And I shared that with staff. But again, we'll let the graders decide. I think there's still an outside chance. You know, we'll see what they say. But there's just things, you know, as I went through the application, I was just surprised about, you know, when they use the word all or every. You know, and that's all and every. There's no, that means every time, or all employees. Anyway, so that's why I say what I say.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yep. I don't have any more.
Okay. Scheduled meeting, next regular board meeting will be November 12th.
I saw an MPPA meeting in here on the 30th schedule.
The executive committee of the MPPA is meeting in this boardroom
Oh, okay.
on October 30th. General manager evaluation, talk about annual year 2021. It's really kind of odd, because they really trust you to have your MPPA board meeting hat, Pat Boland's boss. Weeks later, you know, he's my boss. So it's kind of weird, but yeah, I'll be part of that meeting up in this room. And they pick a role.
But where are you gonna sit?
Where? I'm sitting
In
right
that
there.
meeting.
Oh, right there.
Oh, no, you can't be sitting there.
I can't give up my spot.
Okay.
Sub from Subway with boss written on it too.
That was pretty cool, Sharon did that. That was pretty cool.
Okay, board comments. Jeff?
I'd just like to reiterate what Steve said about Anna. I mean, we just went through the most important aspect of our board in choosing a new general manager. And I don't believe we could have done it without her input. So I agree with your assessment. Kudos to Anna.
I'm so sorry. I did talk with Charlie. He executed the agreement. I got it Tuesday. his lease is effective November 1st. He's hoping to be here Wednesday, November 4th.
Wow.
So 3 weeks from yesterday. I'm gonna have conversations, he has to finalize it, but I do wanna have an email conversation with the board or get more, solicit the board for feedback of what's too long, what's not long enough. The last thing I wanna do is overstay my welcome or spend the board's money, but I have created an outline that I'm gonna send to Charlie, and I'd love to copy the board on, so you know what I think should be communicated to Charlie for that continuity, transition of knowledge, and maybe you guys say we don't need to do any of this, let them figure it out. Again, I don't wanna assume too much, but, I'd love, selfishly even, just because I've been here for 11 years, and
This is your baby.
the way I would, even if I had to do it offline or something, like, I think there's certain things that would be helpful for his success, and I'd be happy to do it. I just, yeah, we have a great staff, I just wanna make sure we keep going. So, and sorry to interrupt, board.
No,
I completely forgot, I was gonna email the board, the staff tomorrow, that Charlie is the person, the rumor's already out there, but he did accept Tuesday, and I want to tell you guys now that he signed on the dotted line, so pretty much official.
So you'll still be here next month, but you can sneak out at 2 hours.
So, the meeting's on the 12th, the following Thursday.
Right.
I mean, in my head, I'm thinking, you know, that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the following week, kinda, where my goal is to fit everything in there. There happens to be an MPPA meeting that week, our board meeting that week, there's a Bell River
Wow.
semi-annual call. So there's some things where I could introduce them to some people just naturally that I think would be nice.
Yep.
And he just doesn't show up to a meeting blind, or how does things kind of operate or work.
Right.
And so, I mean, I would like to have one last hurrah at a board meeting.
Sure.
You know, it just doesn't seem like the last one. It would be really weird if it was.
Right. Right.
But you can
How
still
long
sneak
will
out
it go?
early if you want.
That's true. Not much you
We
can
don't
do
wanna
with
let
that.
you go, Steve, so, stay in
You're fired, severance.
Daniel,
I saw some pictures in here, and when we took Charlie over to the Energy Center, I don't know, we didn't mention, but Casey and Tom, and maybe someone else, but when I saw them, it was them two working on the battery backup system of putting in cabinets and reinstalling it, and it looked very professional. So amongst the other Energy Center, there's that, so thank them for that. You know, Circuit 204 is great news, thank you for that, thank you to Anna, all the office staff for the audit. It's kind of overlooked during this GM transition, but the audit, and being shorthanded and really pushing through Steve's kind of final hurrah, all these extra projects and stuff, so I just want to say thank you to everybody for the extra work.
We threw up a picture of your battery bank, Casey. I put it in the packet if you didn't see that, so great work.
Thank you, everybody.
Tina,
Actually, my notes say the same thing that this young man just said. Except for, I did point out that Julie and Megan, I'm gonna tell you right now, we've been spoiled with Steve and his on-the-spot numbers. And I'm gonna tell you, I was really worried that we weren't gonna have, you know, you're right, we don't need another Steve, but I love the fact that we could throw out numbers and Steve, just like Perry used to say, just like Rain Man, right there on the spot, right to the penny, he knows what those numbers are. And those two ladies really make me feel comfortable. Thank you so much for being there, and being a part of this low-light power. And Anna, you took a beating well, Anna, very well, and I'll tell you, what you did, and you pulled it out of your hat, and you made it happen, and we've got Charlie, that's amazing. That was a lot of leaps and bounds that you did, and thank you so much. And of course, the Energy Center, Casey, you did a great job, the batteries look nice.
is trying to stretch this till 10 or what?
Casey, you gotta know Tina. I mean, she loves it.
Ryan, I really appreciated that input, because I was starting to feel the same way, that some, you know, we gotta look at it differently too, and that's the reason why we asked for your input, because we need another set of eyes to bring us all together to go, oh, okay, that's why. So, thank you, everybody, for being on the call.
Andrew,
Well, I wanted to just note again, thanks to the staff for what they've been doing through all this. And yes, I agree, Anna was awesome with the whole GM process. Also for the audit, I think I noted this in the meeting, but, you noticed that Peter made a point in his report saying that he said that he had no suggestions for improvement of anything we do. And typically, every time he has an audit, I've asked him, is there anything we could do better, anything you would do differently? Maybe Patrick Campbell this time, because he just said, no, there's nothing more. So I don't know if Steve ever had that when he was in charge of the audit, so, Megan and Julia, something you guys can take note of is that Peter couldn't think of anything better he could do, the way things are run here, so I think that's awesome. It's great to hear. And that's all I got for today.
okay. I have a few. I would like to acknowledge everybody also, and the great job that they're doing. I'd also like to mention that in our next, or in the near future, in our next invoices that go out, that are our, or what's the word I'm looking, the
Bill statements?
the bill statements, develop a literature to remind people about, so I had a call this week, just before one of our special meetings, and a customer was paying through the bank, you know, where you go and file that.
Online
do
bill
that.
pay.
Huh?
Online bill pay.
Online bill pay. And he got, his next invoice came, or statement, and he had a late fee and different things. Well, the history is sometimes it's anywhere from 2 weeks to 21 days sometimes before those checks arrive here from the time that they've done that. In fact, this, after he had called our office and we, took the late fee off and different things, and said, I'm gonna call the bank tomorrow, reissue a new check, what do I make it for, etc. And it was the very next day that that check arrived to us, and it was 16 days from the time he or she had did that. I went back after talking to Steve, and we talked and with this customer, and he was not of the understanding that we could do direct pay through our app from the bank. He thought that there was a charge involved, and I think some of that confusion comes from, if you remember when we took credit cards and Light and Power was not charging anything for the use of the credit card, but if you were a city water, you could bring it over, and we were accepting those and not charging, but the city was. There's been this confusion, and I think maybe it's time that we put another letter out, because again, when I went back and said, you can set this up and have it direct and have it for the next 10 years or whatever, and pick the date that you want it to come out, etc. And he goes, really? I didn't, he didn't know that, so hopefully he was going to do that. But again, I think it's maybe something that our office staff could put together, and just a reminder, because I despise those online check things, because again, when you hand somebody a bill in my business, and all of a sudden it doesn't come for 21 days later, you know, it makes the cash flow tough. So again, I think to do that. One other quick question, these probably aren't necessarily at board meetings, but, so pole and pole attachments, so like, I mean, where's the projection? When does AT&T have to get off our poles and all those, and when do we start removing poles and that kind of thing? I mean, is it months from now, is it a year from now, is it?
Are you talking about the dock edition?
Yeah, dock edition,
Well,
it's not a priority.
they're not really on our poles in the dock edition.
Okay,
Ryan and I have talked about the dock edition, you know, I think, Ryan, without putting words in your mouth, I think they're gearing up to start soon, and when they go, they're gonna go. And we're gonna see, I think in Ryan's words, cable's gonna be flying off the shelf left and right. So after customers are hooked up, we can start removing poles. Independent of what we do in the dock edition, we did terminate our 1927
right,
Michigan Bell, AT&T, Village of Lowell agreement. That agreement did officially terminate this past July. We're operating month to month. What they've asked us to do is inventory all of our poles because they have a record of what poles they own, and right now we are in a joint use agreement, not a pole, like attachment agreement. The difference is a joint use agreement is we're co-owners. Somebody has the right to buy out the pole. Out of, not that, I'm not complaining, but just when I thought I didn't need any more work, Kevin Johnson from AT&T emailed me last Friday about this. And our previous response to them was, we have a GIS platform that we just set up. However, there's a lot of field work that needs to be done to identify and geolocate assets. It's been slower than I'd hoped, but we were gonna contract with Tri Global or Mobile Track, I can't remember the name of it. Casey was heading it up. But then, as you may remember, Millsoft came out that they were going to be offering up their solution with no integration. It's gonna be more cost effective, less maintenance in the future, but it's not gonna be till 2021. So, in my board, I think in the last couple months, in the manager's report, I've written about this, that like we're gonna hold off. So I see that AT&T agreement and the GIS being hand in hand because we can kill two birds with one stone. What I do wanna say though to AT&T, we're not gonna sign a joint use agreement, and we will remove all of our stuff from your poles and install our own pole right next to you. Because what's gonna happen if we put in a joint use agreement, they have the right, I read it, reviewed it with legal counsel, to buy us out of our pole and never remove it. So, on the east side of town, if you guys wanna do the same thing that we did in the dock edition, or anywhere else, you wanna go over at Underground, yeah, it's gonna, maybe they'll call our bluff, and they'll say, get off our poles, and we actually have to put a pole in right next to them. But I think we have to look at the bigger picture that if we sign that agreement, poles will exist in this town wherever AT&T's on them, potentially for forever. So that's another conversation, like something that's on my list to talk with about Charlie. But the other thing, and this is a year ago that Ryan and I had a discussion, I think we thought out of all of our poles, maybe AT&T owned 10–15%. So when you think of leverage, we said, okay, we'll get off our 10 to 15% of poles you own, and we'll install 150 new ones. You get off 1,600 poles we own, and you install 1,600 poles. You know what'll happen? They'll sign the pole attachment agreement, forget the joint use agreement. And we played hardball with them in the dock edition, and we won that one. So I don't think we give in to AT&T. I think we call their bluff, and if they call ours, we'll put in new poles. They'll have to install 1,500 of their own poles, and I just don't think it'll ever happen. So anyway, sorry Perry,
Nope.
but that's all. There's always things that I can't get to in a board meeting. But
tell you guys.
Lastly, I wanna thank the board. And I know we talked about, you know, it's a whole group effort. I mean, without the great employees that we have and everything, but without this board, and I think it's a top-notch board, I don't think Light and Power would be where it is. If we do, again, I'm dragging this out, we do take, long meetings, and as you had approved, I think there were, 7 meetings since the last, you know, that we've had, special meetings. So with that, I purchased from Heidi's muffins, pumpkin, apple cinnamon, and poppy seed, that I'd like you guys to take home. If you got, you know, Andrew, you got 2 kids, make sure you take 4 of them, 1 for your wife and yourself. Same thing with Steve, and have Adam. And again, that's my thank you for putting up with me. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.